What's up, guys? Rattlesnake Patriot here, just sitting out here on my patio on a hot summer afternoon. I wanted to talk a little bit today about price setting. We live in a country now that seems to think we can do whatever we want to the economy and it will just listen. Completely forgotten any economic lessons we've learned, and I think some of us maybe haven't even learned any. But yeah, I want to talk about setting prices and what that actually does and how it's not beneficial to anybody. Makes some people feel good that don't understand it, but it's not beneficial whatsoever. So, first of all, we have to understand that uh, in a free market, uh, capitalistic state, prices are set by the market. And the way that is done is basically it is the supply of the good relative to the demand of the good. So, let's say a place like, if we want to talk real estate, a place like Aspen, Colorado. Well, Aspen, Colorado is an extreme high demand, and there's only so much Aspen, and there's only so much around Aspen. So there's a lot of people that want to own real estate there, and there's a lot more people that want to own real estate there than there is real estate to be owned there. So because of that, prices go higher and higher and higher, and that is why the prices of real estate, the cost of real estate in places like Aspen and probably places in Hawaii and Jackson Hole, Wyoming are so high. It's the demand relative to the supply. There's only one Jackson, there's only one Hawaii, there's only one Aspen. You can apply that same knowledge to any basic good. Now, sure, you can ask the government to pass a law that would regulate the price on something. You could say, oh, these people are price gouging. We need to pass a law and make it so they can only charge a certain amount for this product. And let me explain to you why that doesn't work. And in fact, what that does is that creates 100% of the time, that creates a shortage of that good or service that you are trying to keep the cost down of. So not now you can, before you set prices, if you want to pay a little extra, you can have that good. After you set prices, you might not even be able to get hold of that good. So, for instance, a lot of people, and it has to do with emotions. A lot of people, when there's a hurricane, let's say in Florida, get irate that maybe the price of bottled water might go up. They want to have price controls on bottled water, things like this that people buy before hurricanes. And it's understandable that, oh, that would be horrible to jack up the prices on something somebody needs to survive. And I agree with that feeling, but that doesn't make the situation better. So what happens is if you don't let prices naturally rise on something that's in high demand versus its supply, you will run out of that good. So in Florida, when a hurricane is bearing down on Florida, you will have a lot of people that go out to stores, they get batteries. We're just going to talk about bottled water, but they get all this stuff, right? So, bottled water, let's say a family wants to go in and buy a bunch of bottled water, and everybody keeps the price of bottled water low. Let's say we passed a law or what have you. Well, if a case of bottled water is the same price when a hurricane's bearing down as it is normally, why, as a family, why would you go and buy as much of that bottled water as you can? And so that's what happens a lot of times. And I've heard in the news, there's grocery stores and stuff that will set a limit to one per customer or whatever. But obviously, you can send a husband and wife can go in separately. You can go in multiple times. You can go to multiple stores. So there's ways to get around that. But the problem is, if you don't let let's say a case of water is $10. If you don't let people jack up the price of water and say, you know what, there's not a whole lot of this, instead of charging $10, we're going to charge $30. So it's a 300% markup, 3 times what you'd normally pay for it. If you don't allow things like that to happen, then on both the supply side and the demand side of that good, you're hurting yourself. So not only does everybody want to buy as much as they can, people don't want to supply any more of it because they're not going to be incentivized to make any more money doing it. And that may sound cruel, but if you think of it, if you're a trucker and there's a hurricane bearing down on Florida, which is a peninsula, obviously, what is your incentive to haul a truckload of bottled water to Florida when you know, even if you don't end up in the hurricane, you know you are going to drive down there and you're going to come back probably in wall-to-wall traffic, and it's going to be a huge pain in the ass, and it's going to take you longer. So if you're not going to get paid more to go down there, why wouldn't you just take a route to Ohio or some other place like that? So they might need to incentivize truck drivers to spend more, or and pay them more to go down there. They might need to, and the bottled water companies, let's say there's one in Atlanta, they might need to incentivize employees to work overtime, right? And they're going to pay them more on overtime. So this is the cost of everything going up to meet that demand. So that's why when you do set prices, when you do price control items, you will have a shortage. Now, I think there's probably, in a situation like that, there's a lot of people that do what they can and try to help out because they're being good people. Even though they're not getting paid more to truck water down there, they still go down and do it. But if you take a good, let's say the government says food prices are too high. To we're going to limit ranchers to, they can't sell their cattle for any more than $2 a pound. That's the highest amount they can sell it for. We want to keep, hamburger prices at X dollars in the grocery store. So they pass a law to do that, and on now all of a sudden ranchers can't charge any more than $2 a pound. Well, if you know anything about agriculture, there's not a real thick profit margin for the producers. It's a pretty slim margin, and a lot of years they lose money. But if you do that, you don't understand. These people are driving around. They're using diesel to feed cattle. They're using diesel to make hay and other feeds. They're having to vaccinate their cattle. They're having to truck them to market. There is a ton of cost that goes into producing beef. And it's pretty tough to produce a pound of beef for less than $2 a pound and make any money whatsoever. So let's say the government does that. All right, well, we're going to pass a law to make everybody feel better that now ranchers can't charge any more than $2 per pound. So guess what's going to happen? Let's say it keeps prices low in the grocery store, so everybody wants to buy as much hamburger as possible, right? So on the demand side, everyone's consuming as much as possible. On the supply side, however, many ranchers are saying, well, I'm going to lose money raising cattle, so I'm going to stop raising cattle so I don't lose money. I'm not going to work all year long to pay the bank. So in that situation, you would have a shortage. You're not incentivizing people on the demand side to come up with other options. Maybe they can eat chicken sometimes. Maybe they can eat a little less hamburger. Maybe they can do all these things, right? And then on the supply side, well, you're not incentivizing them to create more because there's no profit. There's no reward for producing that. So why would they want to produce more of that? So this is just a basic economic lesson on why supply and demand works, and you have to let the market do its thing. The market will always fix itself. The fix for high prices is high prices. So let's say we're not talking about now, we're not talking about anybody setting prices on beef. Let's say beef prices go sky high and everybody's complaining and they're wanting to set prices on beef. Well, and they don't set prices. But what happens is when ranchers start getting $5 a pound for their cattle, guess what? They find ways to produce more. Maybe that pasture that some old retired guy wasn't putting anything in, he's starting to use again. Other people are figuring out on the demand side, they're figuring out ways to eat less beef. Right? So the cure for high prices is high prices, and the cure for low prices is low prices. Same situation on the opposite. Prices are so low for beef that ranchers can't afford to make beef anymore. So a lot of ranchers get out. They quit raising cattle, right? So what happens is the reason why the prices were so low is because there was so much excess. There was so much excess that they couldn't afford to make a profit when they sold their product because there's so much of it out there and not enough people that want it. That's going to fix itself. It might take a couple years, but that's going to fix itself because people are going to jump out of the cattle business. They're going to stop producing. And slowly and surely, there will be less cattle on the market. And pretty soon, the demand will catch up to and maybe even outpace the supply. And once the demand is higher than the supply, the price goes back up. So these are the things that a free market, capitalistic country does to provide goods and services so everybody has stuff. When you start using these socialist economic policies, you're setting up a situation where everybody's going to starve and everybody's going to do without. Yeah, they sound good. They sell them as this warm, fuzzy thing and it's so much better and everybody's going to have this. But no, people starve in socialist countries. They have since they've started socialist countries. Since there's been a socialist government on this planet, people have been starving in that country. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents for today. There's no such thing as price gouging. Setting prices does not work. You guys have a good afternoon.